Hello, welcome, good morning. I don't see anyone because of the lights, so I'll just talk to this black hole here in front of me. Welcome to our session. Today we will tell you how we did a project by using ChatGPT and human knowledge, analyzing the political speech during the latest Greek election. We are here with the colleagues that we did the project. I don't know if you want to say who you are, each one of you, just for a minute.
Okay. I am Antonis Galanopoulos, PhD candidate at the School of Political Sciences in Aristotle University of Thessaloniki.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming. I'm Kelly Kiki, data journalist and project manager at the AIME team.
I'm Thanasis Troboukis, in case you didn't read my name behind me.
Hello everyone, I'm Ilias Dimitriadis. I'm a postdoc researcher, data scientist at the Data Lab at the Informatics Department of Aristotle University of Thessaloniki.
Hi all, I'm Stelios Karamanidis. I'm a researcher and web developer at the Data Lab, Aristotle University of Thessaloniki.
Hello, again from Data Lab. I'm Pavlos Herbezis, senior researcher, data scientist.
So, what this project was about, we analyzed the pre-election speeches of Greece's main political leaders, and we did so by utilizing human knowledge, as I told you before, and state-of-the-art algorithms, and of course, ChatGPT. What we wanted to find, what sentiment they convey in their speeches. The dominant sentiment was categorized as positive, neutral, or negative. The level of political polarization in its speech, and Adonis will expand later on how we measure polarization, I mean the definition that we used. If populism is detected in the rhetoric, we identified named entities like people, countries, groups of people, etc. And last but not least, we wanted to find which issues they raise in public discourse. Specifically, we wanted to find the main topic of its paragraph, or the main topics of its speech, like accountability, agricultural policy, civil protection, corruption, etc. And also what percentage of their speech did they devote to present their political agenda, and what to criticize their opponent. So our findings provided a more in-depth analysis of the campaign and a detailed analysis that was useful after the elections when we tried to make sense of the results. For instance, the leader of the opposition party, Alexis Tsipras, who saw his the party's ratings plummet, expressed a negative sentiment, mostly, or a more negative sentiment than his opponent, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, on almost all topics, and spent somewhat, I think, half of his speeches, of the length of the speeches, criticizing his opponent instead of presenting his political agenda. And these findings are interesting for making sense of why did we get these results in the elections, and also do a more in-depth political analysis. We will tell you later about the methodology that we followed. We will be very detailed about that, and of course we will receive questions afterwards. The models that we used are the transcriptor, DeepL, and ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo. And in our analysis, instead of asking bluntly ChatGPT to detect polarization or to detect populism, we provided a definition written by Adonis, and then asked ChatGPT to rate its paragraph of the speech according to this definition. That means that we don't use, and no one actually should use ChatGPT for its knowledge. It has hidden biases inside. There are hidden biases in the model, which are substantial. However, we use its capacity to understand text and which is, the revolutionary thing that has happened the last year or so. I won't go into details about the ways that we did the prompting. Maybe during the Q&A session, we can also expand on that, because there are quite a few ways that you can ask ChatGPT about a question. But I think it's time to show you the platform that we use, our website, with some of the charts. I don't know if we can see that behind me. Perfect. So this is the landing page of the project, and here we have published all the articles in the political analysis, and we have a very detailed methodology, and we are very transparent also on the limitations of the programs and the algorithms and how we overcame that. Here, these charts are depicting the sentiment of each political leader, and you can measure the sentiment on all speeches or per speech. And this is, as you can see here, the difference between the Kyriakos Mitsotakis and his opponent, who is on the neutral sentiment. Also, we have a sentiment analysis for the whole pre-election period. Here's the start of the pre-election period, the middle, and the end. And also here you can see the difference between the two party leaders. For those of you who are not Greek, Kyriakos Mitsotakis won the election, by the way. But also you can understand that by the charts. It would make more sense. Someone who speaks positively about the things in his program, maybe it makes sense. So here is the sentiment analysis per speech. So we wanted to see if there was a pattern on all speeches and his strategy, when is he building up his speech, when is he having the lows. In the lows, he describes the problems. In the highs, he provides the solution to the problems. And this is one of the most important charts, because here are the topics that each political leader is mentioning and the sentiment when he's talking about this topic. And Kyriakos Mitsotakis here, as you can see, was talking mostly positive. Alexis Tsipras mostly negative. And it's very, you can visualize actually their strategy. Also here we can see the what percentage of the speech are devoting to criticism and what percentage of the speech they are devoting to presenting their political agenda. We have many more charts that we will see while Antonis is giving us the main findings of this project.
Okay. Hello from me. I will link my notes to keep me in order, especially regarding time, who already runs very fast. As briefly as possible, I will mention only 3 points that highlight, in a way, the usefulness of our approach, this experimental approach of bringing together human expertise and AI tools. First of all, we studied polarization and populism to explore empirically the dominant in the media hypothesis that the country would be faced with a very polarized political landscape marked by high levels of populism. What we understood with polarization and populism, polarization was seen as an ideological and programmatic distance between the parties, and a discourse that tried to create two incompatible political stances between the parties or the leaders speaking. And populism was understood as a political discourse that divides society into two main, let's say, political camps, the people and the elite, the few and the many, different words that carry the same meaning. Our findings did not confirm these assessments, based more or less on stereotypical approaches of both phenomena. So no extreme levels of polarization, as you can see, or consistent use of polarizing rhetoric patterns was observed. There were obviously instances of polarization, but not widespread. Populism was not a prominent discursive strategy of any political leader. More frequent uses of populist discourse could be found in Alexis Tsipras' speeches, but populism remained at very low levels, especially if you compare it with previous periods like 2012, 2014, the economic crisis, etc. Second, by comparing the political style and strategy of each party leader, our analysis helped us to come up with pertinent remarks regarding political communication during a campaign period. Thanasis already mentioned some of them. Kyriakos Mitsotakis' discursive strategy demonstrated an impressive consistency, marked by a positive sentiment, as Thanasis said, and a dedicated focus on the programmatic agenda of his party, in stark contrast to all other leaders. Practically, the agenda of New Democracy shaped the overall debate during the two-month electoral period. We could also perform a quick comparative analysis between the two pre-election periods. For example, Alexis Tsipras' discursive strategy underwent two notable changes: a significant reduction in populist discursive patterns during the second election period, and a systematic effort to place a greater emphasis on the programmatic dimension. The third point, we managed to explore, unconsciously at the time, agenda setting and framing processes, examining how each political leader talked about migration and if they changed their discursive strategy after the devastating sinking of a boat full of refugees and migrants before the second elections. We tried to focus on how the issue of migration was framed and the connotations associated with it. We cannot go into full details right now, but the most interesting fact was the extremely contrasting image that someone will get when he examines the discourse of the two leaders of the two main parties. Although migration was not a central topic, Prime Minister Mitsotakis mentioned it more frequently than any other political leader. We noticed at least one mention in almost half of his speeches. But he emphasized one specific aspect: border protection. The whole issue of migration was exclusively framed as a matter of national security. Now you may ask what happened with the leader of the opposition. The migration was almost completely absent up until the last week of June elections, the second elections. It seemed that he avoided the topic, probably for political reasons, but that's another matter, for more than 2 months, and he started referring to it almost a week after the death of hundreds of migrants and refugees. So you have the main, let's say, findings of our project. I think that I will stop here, and we can continue the discussion later on.
Okay, so let's now move into the how we did it part. So at first we had to collect the speeches, of course, and our primary sources were the press offices of the political parties, followed by their websites and social media accounts, followed by the Athens Macedonia News Agency, followed by the Hellenic Broadcasting Corporation and other local media outlets, in rare cases when campaign speeches were not released from the pre-mentioned official sources. So we decided, of course, to work with written text. So when we had a written text divided into paragraphs based on the main topic of its paragraph, then that text was retained. If we had a written text, but it was divided into paragraphs based on oral delivery, then our team of journalists sitting here, like in the front line, were going into it and edited the text by segmenting it into paragraphs based on the main topic. Of course, we didn't always have written text, but we had video or audio files to work with. So in that case, in these cases, we used transcriptor, an AI-powered online tool to convert audio into text and then follow the same editing and formatting process. So once we had like the final Greek written text, we used DeepL API to translate the Greek written text into English, and that was our like final input for the ChatGPT. We fed ChatGPT with those translated written texts, and we asked it to get back to us with responses for a couple of different questions. So first we asked ChatGPT for its different speeds in its, for its different paragraph in its different speeds, to respond back if the passage was referring mostly to criticizing political opponents or to political agenda, meaning views, opinions, programmatic proposals, etc. Then we asked ChatGPT to respond back with the most likely topic, main topic, out of a list of 33 topics we provided ChatGPT with. And then we asked ChatGPT to respond back with values to determine sentiment detected in the passage, polarization levels, and populism levels detected in the passage. Specifically, we asked it to return back a value from 0 to 1 for the sentiment, and then we were classifying those passages into 3 different categories, meaning negative, neutral, or positive. And it was returning back values from -1 to 1 for the polarization and populism levels detected. Again, we were classifying everything afterwards into 3 different categories, meaning no or low levels of polarization, populism, medium levels, or high levels. And of course, we finally asked ChatGPT to respond back with a list of named entities organized in different categories like organizations, group of people, locations, dates, etc. So once we had the responses, we had a data set for its different speeds, with rows corresponding to the number of paragraphs and columns corresponding to different research variables. And then the human data validation process was starting. We had 2 annotators each time. So in the case of criticism or political agenda research variable, and in the case of topics detection, 2 journalists from the team were running into all the passages of its different text and ChatGPT results, and we're making corrections when needed. In terms of the scores, sentiment, polarization, and populism indices, we had Adonis and 1 more journalist who were again running through the results and making corrections in case of inaccuracies based on a specific set of methodological decisions we had made in advance. I'm not running into details in this part of how exactly we did these adjustments or corrections, but I can get back to this if you're further interested afterwards. So once the data validation process was finished, then that was our final data set for its different speeds. And that was the data we were feeding our constantly updated visualizations, meaning charts and graphs who were being updated daily during the pre-election period. Now, our fellows from the Data Lab team, I think Pavlos, gonna go into further details regarding the prompting and the technical process, and we're gonna get back.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. So all these things that Kelly said, we analyzed this, we analyzed that. How we did it? In fact, we wrote a computer program that did this analysis. It interacted with ChatGPT and did this analysis. So what our computer program does, it gets us input a Word document with a speech. And it gives us output an Excel document with rows, the paragraphs of the speech, and columns, the annotations, if the speech, if the paragraph has positive sentiment, negative, what the named entities are in there, etc. So this is the overview of the computer program. How we did this computer program, we followed some typical data science methods and simple computer programming. So how many of you here are data journalists? Can you raise your hands? Okay. How many of you know how to code in Python? Okay. So for you that know to code in Python, we are going to release the code. It will be easy for you to understand what we did there. For those of you who don't know how to code these things, it's really simple, really easy for you to find a guy that will understand this, because this is basic skills that computer programmers know. So it's easy to find a guy that can collaborate with you and reuse this program. So this computer program, what it does, it splits the text in paragraphs, and then for each paragraph, it goes into an iterative process, where at each iterations, it makes a prompt to ChatGPT. I suppose that most of you have interacted with ChatGPT at the user interface through your browser or mobile phone, etc. Okay. So we can elaborate more on these things later at the question section. So, as I was telling you, you have interacted with ChatGPT on the user interface. How we interacted it? We interacted it in a computer program way through an API. So it's the same way, we just do it automatically through a computer program. And we get the results. We ask, what is the sentiment from -1, which means negative, to +1, which means positive in ChatGPT, and it was giving us a number. Yeah, not exactly. Because at first, when we asked ChatGPT, give us a number between -1 to +1, it gave us a number plus a very large explanation of why it is. This explanation was really useful in our experimentation in checking all the process, if it's correct or not, and Ilias will tell more things about it. But in order to get all these visualizations, all these charts, we just needed a single number. So in order to get a single number, we refined the prompting in order to make ChatGPT give exactly what we wanted, a number or a topic or an answer if it's criticism or agenda. And then we had to go through some cleaning data processes to make the numbers in the nice format so they can fit into an Excel. And after we got this Excel, so for example, for one speech, it's an Excel with 30 rows, like more or less it was, that was the average number of paragraphs in a speech. So it's some small amount of data, and it's easy to put it in a visualization tool. However, as the pre-election period goes on, we aggregated like 150 speeches. So if you want to analyze, to visualize all these speeches, and in real time, as you have seen, Thanasis was playing with interactions, and the visualizations were changing immediately. So we had to do an extra step and split all this information in very small files that could be used automatically by the visualizations that Stelios did, and he's responsible for all these nice visualizations. He's the main responsible for this. So, give the mic to him.
Thank you, Pavlos. As Pavlos said, I was mainly involved in creating the visualizations. It's the last step in the methodology flow, but it's quite important because that's what the user sees at the end on the screen. One of the biggest challenges was, of course, the lack of time, but another challenge was the need to create many different types of standalone visualizations, which at the end they would be interactive, so the user would change something and the chart will change on the screen, and also would dynamically change during the whole project. As Pablo said, we split the data into small parts so that when something changed, only the corresponding data file will change, and so the corresponding chart will change, keeping the times of serving the front end at the user screen relatively narrow. We have used the observable platform to create the chart types, instead of using other commonly used platforms for chart creation in data journalism like Floris or Data Wrapper, because of observables' rich features, the variation of chart types you can create there, and of course the customization options you have later on. So at the final product, which is the website you see on the screen, we have used around 10 different types of charts, including a tree map, line charts, bar plots, step charts, radial dendrograms, heat maps, and going on. Another big challenge was the selection of these charts from the team. So this was a procedure with lots of communication back and forth between the two teams of journalists and data scientists and
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and developers in choosing the right types of charts so that all this data gathered would give the right insights to the people, and of course all of this product will load really fast when the user interacts with it. At the final product, as you can see, what happens here is the user interacts with an input form. So a request is made to the observable runtime API. The updated data from the GitHub repo where they are uploaded are loaded there, and the user can see the change graph on the screen and interact with it. I don't know if it's really important to dive into more details on Observable. Observable is basically a platform where you can write code, JavaScript or HTML or Markdown, and you can create various components, charts from really simple ones to really complex ones that can be later be embedded in any website like we did here using the extracted code. I think that...
Here it's important to say that the plots we have done, they can be forked. I mean, you can copy and paste the code and use it for your own purposes as well. You can fit into them your data, and yeah, more details.
Yeah, as long as the notebooks you create in Observable are public, you can use it for free. And it's a big community out there. You can collaborate with a lot of authors, and you can use ready-to-use examples from the web, or change them and implement it in your project.
So, Ilias, we started this project in April, if I remember correctly, or March. Could we have done this without ChatGPT?
Okay, so there are two answers here. Yes and no. at the specific point we started the analysis, my answer would be no. However, we experimented with other machine learning models to try in an attempt to replicate these results. And this was not, this could not happen. I mean, the results were not good. And there are two main reasons for this. The first one, and the most important one, is that we didn't have enough data. So in order to make all of these publicly available open source models work, we need to fine-tune them with updated data. And these data were not available at that time. We had speeches that were coming along all the way, but at that point, we didn't have any data. So we tried to experiment with ChatGPT. We saw that the results were actually really good. And instead of fine-tuning a model after the end of the elections, we thought that it would be a nice also social experiment to use ChatGPT.
At first, we didn't trust ChatGPT
yes,
at all.
That's for sure.
And maybe we shouldn't trust it still, but you know, that's another discussion.
But at least now we have some data and we know how much we can trust it or not, because you did all this manual validation.
Do you, Paulos, want to mention some of your findings when you measured, like, accuracy of ChatGPT based on the volume of human corrections?
Yeah, sure. That's a really interesting point. So, as Kelly said before, what we did for each speech, we passed it into ChatGPT. It did some annotations, if it is positive, negative sentiment, etc. And then the team of journalists here did a manual verification, if it's correct or not. And if it was not correct, they were changing it. So at the end of the project, after the election has finished and we had data of all these speeches, we compared how many cases ChatGPT was giving correct annotations. So its performance, its accuracy was not the same in every task we gave to ChatGPT. So for sentiment analysis, it was really good, 95% accuracy, which is really good. So you can more or less trust GPT for this kind of tasks. For topics, we were giving to ChatGPT a list of 33 topics and was telling to it, okay, this is the text, these are the topics, choose one of these topics as the most representative of the text. So the accuracy of ChatGPT was 62%. Is it high or is it low? Low, yeah, because you're journalists. And for us, it was something more or less expected, because you ask a machine to choose one out of 33 things to classify a text and this is a difficult problem. So AI, even a better trained model, a model trained on your data, which performs even better than ChatGPT, it cannot go to 95%. I mean, it's really difficult to do so. So we have moderate expectations for these kind of tasks. For the tasks of Andonis, the social science task of populism and polarization, it didn't perform well. I mean, because in most cases, it was overestimating the populism and polarization. And discussing with Adonis and later on doing an evaluation, in retrospect, it was something that it makes sense, because these are complex concepts. Plus, there is a difference of how social scientists define populism and how me, for example, that I'm just a citizen or just not an expert on this, how I understand what populism is. So, for example, in some speeches, I was thinking that there is populism by reading the text. ChatGPT was telling, yes, there is some populism. And Andoni said, no, by its formal definition, it's not populism. And this is important because this shows that this indicates some data biases on the data that ChatGPT was trained on. ChatGPT was trained on some datasets that people annotated different speeches if there is their populism or not. And probably these people were like me, not experts. And these biases propagate to the results later on.
I can show the prompt. No, it's not the actual prompt, but this is somehow how it looked like on populism and on polarization. For some reason, I cannot present here. Here. So we provided context what populism is. Sorry. And yeah, that happened a lot during the project. We provided context what populism is or what polarization is. We gave it examples. The ChatGPT is very good when you give them a list and you say, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then asked for the results. And the results then, they were much better than the initial results when we didn't provide any context. And Adonis, is this method of analyzing political speech useful to the political science?
Okay. The short answer will be yes, but. So I think that our project offers a different point of entrance, let's say, for academic researchers to enter the field and formulate a series of research hypotheses, especially regarding the fields of discourse analysis, agenda setting, framing that I have already mentioned. But our work does not substitute, let's say, in-depth academic analysis. It contributes to it, offers insights or new tools to support it, but we cannot say that this project or this kind of analysis can substitute a theoretical, qualitative or quantitative analysis. The key for me is cooperation, as this team proves it. We need interdisciplinary approaches in order to let's say, find more interesting stuff than data science only or political science only. That would be my answer.
Did you, as a political scientist, expect in the beginning that this thing, like analyzing the political campaign speeches by using ChatGPT, will work at the end?
No. Yeah, I was reluctant, obviously, especially regarding my, let's say, topic, which is populism and polarization at the second level. I had, let's say, a fear that the results will not be very successful or whatever. But eventually, I think it worked. And what is interesting for me is that at the end, we published a series of commentaries by academics with different theoretical and methodological background, and none of them expressed an objection with our results. So for me, it's a safety check, let's say.
Did you feel that you annotated too much to make it that work, or it was okay?
At the beginning, yes, but later on, I think everything was better.
And we have with us the heroes behind this project who did the validation, and we have with us Nikos Androulakis, stand up. And Kyriakos Mitsotakis, and Dimitris Koutsoumbas, and Yannis Varoufakis. And without them, we couldn't have done this project at all. So I think it's time for questions. If you want to add something.
I just want to add that we will make this data public, of course. And we're already planning on making a publication on a fine-tuned model that has been trained on this data as is. And not a ChatGPT model, I mean a fine-tuned open source model. So most probably you will be able to use it to identify topics, sentiment and stuff in Greek political speeches. So hopefully.
Any questions? Here, we have one question here.
First of all, as I said personally to you also, congratulations, it's a very interesting project. I was wondering about two things. The first is, we have seen GPT-4 in a lot of benchmarks performing much better than 3.5. Did you, I know that API access was probably delayed for your project, but it'd be very interesting to see in comparison in how good it is in each case. How good it is, especially in populism detection, because it had a very much wider ground truth to understand perhaps better populism. The second question is about translation, because especially some jargon, it is a question how well they were, translated, and if perhaps the model ChatGPT could be confused by some terms. And in that aspect also, did you compare the performance of, let's say, the Google Translate API in DPL?
May I answer a bit for the second part, and then I'll give you the speech. So what we did is that we translated everything like automatically with DeepL, but we validated the data in Greek. So if there was a problem, we would correct it, and we would be able to and actually the mistakes that ChatGPT made were mistakes, especially in the categorization process, were mistakes that also a human could make. Because sometimes when you are talking about the accident in Tebi, sometimes it would be categorized as
infrastructure.
That was a fun fact. So that tragic railway accident was categorized as Greek crisis at first during our trial and errors period, and that was because of the tragedy word in the passages. So the fun fact is how ChatGPT thought that when a tragedy is around, it is about the Greek financial crisis.
And also, one thing that we did later in the project is that we started correcting the translation of DeepL with ChatGPT. And now about...
Maybe just a short notice before Ilias says about the differences between the GPT versions is that this project worked in Greek. So the input, the Word document was in Greek. Then it was translated in English, etc. So this would be interesting also to check the exact same pipeline in other languages, like in Spanish, and maybe we can see how well it performs there with the translation, etc. It's the same pipeline.
Yeah. Yes, and regarding your question about 3.5, 2.4, first of all, we needed consistency in our results, so we could not experiment at that point of time. Now we are making more tests on how it performs when you try it a lot of times. And the next step is to compare it with GPT-4 and our fine-tuned model that we're going to produce. So this is actually a work in progress.
And we have another question here.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Mommy from La Nación in Argentina. Congratulations. This is I think the best project that I've seen in NLP for useful information for journalism and all the effort. We work in similar projects, and I know this team is so important as well as all of you. The thing is, what we are doing now, we are using Whisper. Whisper is from OpenAI, and it was for translation for Spanish, but you have to try in your case. Works very good. We compare it with another ones, and I want to ask you, all this that you've learned. In our case, what happens is that all the annotations we want to feed it again to all the machine, the process, no? So it learns this is yes, this is populism, this is not, or this is a word or a concept or a topic. Regarding topics, we use dictionaries and we can feed this. We use Spacey library. We didn't use ChatGPT yet, but the question is, if you are planning or if you find a way to retrofit and like make this learn, so the next time you process this, or at least keep the annotation safe. So you can do it because, for example, in some libraries like Spacey, you have this correction feature that you can feed, oh, this is a name, this is an entity. And also that an annotation, if you used one annotation feature, or just Google Sheets or whatever? That's 2 questions. But
Okay, so at the time we did the project, we didn't correct, we didn't fine-tune the models, because at that time ChatGPT it was not possible to fine-tune the model, and we didn't have time to fine-tune our own models. But this is one of the main reasons that we're going to publish the dataset, so it is available to anyone to fine-tune the model. Moreover, in the report we're going to do in an article, or I don't know in what exact form, we're going to put more lessons learned, because we did not do everything perfect. And now, thinking again, we have thought of several ways that we can try and improve things. So, for example, I was discussing with Adonis that populism and polarization, that is a complex concept, and it's difficult for a machine to ask it and give it back to you a question. We were thinking of some novel methods that are used to prompt ChatGPT, which is called chain of thought, where you split the question into smaller questions that a human would ask to himself before giving an answer. So this is also a different approach that one can try to improve the results. And yeah, I think we have learned a lot from these projects. It's not only the results that it gave us.
And very quickly, because when we started and we published the project within a month. So we didn't have a lot of time to play around and go to Hugging Face and find more models and, you know, check everything. So we had to act quickly because that's news, and we wanted to test it right away. You know, it was like do it now and do it the best way you can, and then you can change as it goes.
Yeah, I understand, and to be honest, I know that this is just a tool that was created to be offered to journalists and political scientists for analysis, I guess, further on. But since most of us here, or all of us are journalists, I can't help but ask if all this and the findings explain in any way the outstanding results of the election and this incredible, you know, percentage that the first party took, and if you have any comment on that.
Okay, it's practically, it shows how a very bad, I would say, campaign can lead to a more negative result than expected. The bad, let's say, communication strategy does not explain in full a political result, an election result, but can show how you can have a more positive or more negative result than the political factors alone could have predicted. That would be my short answer. We can discuss it later.
And also, that's a new way to do political reporting, right? It won't change the way that politics are reported in the news, but this is a new tool, and you know, you can dig deeper. And I think the finding about how Tsipras never mentioned migration in the first election period, and Syriza is a left-wing party, so this is a change of the whole spirit of, you know, of a left-wing party, if you leave out human rights and migration. So, and this provides, you know, some kind of proof. And it's measured proof, you know, it's with numbers at some point. That's well, let's continue. Let her give the answer, and then we'll come to you.
No, I would just like to add something to what Thanasis mentioned. I would say, if I may, it was worth doing this project just because we had a very quick and easy answer about who talked about refugees and migration issues and how much they talked. And the short answer is no one and too little. And the fact we had this so easy and so quick answer at the moment the tragic sinking of a fishing boat transferring refugees and migrants with hundreds of fatalities happened, the fact we had the answer just at that time, it would be enough to say, okay, it was worth we did it, even if there were no other results. That's my personal opinion, but because you asked for journalistic outputs, that would be mine.
And also, last note, and then you can have the microphone. From the time that the speech was given, we needed 3 hours, I think, to get it published. We could have it published in 3 hours, but we needed in actual 6 hours or something like that just to get validated, which is quite quick. Yeah, it happened during the night, but next thing, by 12, by noon, we had it published.
Okay. What are the ChatGPT biggest cons and pros?
It's the biases. ChatGPT already has opinions about Tsipras, about Koutsoupas. It had a stronger bias, Adonis, if I remember correctly, as discussed in Kelly, towards the left-wing parties, and especially towards the speech of the Communist Party leader.
I don't remember the full details right now, but yes, it showed more bias. It can be explained because you had a more complex, let's say, political discourse, or more polarized in some instances, so it was more difficult to understand it. Where in the right side, or the Prime Minister Mitsotakis, it was a very consistent discursive pattern, easy, positive, no polarization, no populism. It was far more easier for ChatGPT to understand it, let's say.
And may I also say something? In my opinion, the pros, the main pro, it's that it works. So it it made this project possible. And the cons is that we still, as a community in general, don't know how well it works. So we cannot trust it for everything. We need some experimentation. I think this was one example that gave us some hints.
And that's why we read everything, ending up having AI in the loop instead of having human in the loop.
Do you want to add anything?
It was a minor comment, but I just wanted to say that what we all post out there is actually what trains ChatGPT. So this is where the bias comes from. So
You talk about the audience now because you're a journalist.
a general comment. Okay.
Thank you all very much.